Back another night, another barbecue pit preview for UFC Vegas 39. Mackenzie Dern, Marina Rodriguez. We're going to jump right into it. It's going to be a quick one here. Phil Hawes versus Duran Win. Classic striker versus wrestler. Hawes, 11-2, 3-0 in the UFC. He's got a knockout over Jacob Malkoun and then decisions over Nasruddin Amanov and Kyle Dawkins. He lost a knockout to Julian Marquez on the Contender Series 2017, won his contract on the Contender Series 2020. He has 7 wins by knockout, and he's coming into this fight with a 5-inch height and a 7-inch reach advantage over De'Aaron Wynn, who is 7-2, 2-2 in the UFC. Decision wins over Eric Spicely and Antonio Arroyo in his last fight. He's got a split decision loss to Darren Stewart and a submission loss to Gerald Mearshart. He's never been knocked out. He's got 4 knockout wins. He's a junior college national champion in wrestling in 2008 and 2010. Like I said, big time wrestler going against heavy hands Phil Hawes. Phil Hawes got a significant height, significant reach advantage. You know, some might say low center of gravity. That might be better for the wrestler. I'm gonna think it's better for the striker, keeping him at the end of his punches, the end of his kicks. I'm gonna go Phil Hawes, probably knockout. I don't think De'Aaron Wynn's been knocked out in his career. This is the first time for everything. So, Phil Hawes. Sabina Mazo, Marina Agropova, I think is how you say her name. Mazo's 9-2, never been finished in her career. 6 decision wins, 3-2 in the UFC. She lost her debut to Marina Moros, and then her most recent fight she lost to Alexis Davis. Her UFC wins include Shayna Dobson, J.J. Aldrich, and Justine Kish. She's a former LFA flyweight champion, and she just moved to 135 in her most recent fight against Alexis Davis. Agropova is 9-2, only been finished once in her career, and that was her last fight. She got TKO'd by Shayna Dobson. She lost decision to Tracy Cortez on Dana White's Contender Series, went 2-0 in Invicta, and then beat Hannah Cyphers in her UFC debut, and then had the Shayna Dobson fight. Agropova's got long, rangy boxing, knockout power. Sabina Mazo is a very well-rounded fighter, but I think the attributes coming into this with as far as length and reach and boxing skills and stand-up skills, I'm going to give to Agropova. Agropova coming in plus 155 underdog. I think that's. I think if anything, I would have this fight being even money, but we'll see when the fight comes. I don't really see Sabina Mazo being that dominant over Agropova if she is able to dominate the fight. I think it's kind of it's going to be drawn out to a decision kind of thing. But I'm going to go Agropova, probably a decision or a TKO. Tim Elliott versus Matthias Niccolo. Tim Elliott, 17-11-1 in his career on a 2-fight winning streak right now with decision wins over Ryan Benoit and Jordan Espinoza. He's only been knocked out once in his career. He's 8-5 by decision. He's a former Titan FC flyweight champion, and he is a NCAA Division II wrestler, former Division II wrestler. He's blue belt in jiu-jitsu. He'll be going up against the black belt in jiu-jitsu with Matthias Nikolao. 16-2-1 is Nikolao. He was knocked out in both of his losses. Pedro Nombre and Dustin Ortiz were those 2 knockout losses. He fought in the UFC from 2015 to 2017, went 3-1 in that span. Won twice outside the UFC and then returned in March of 2021 with a split decision win over Manel Kopp. Kopp's a big win, man. Tim Elliott, very good wrestler, very good all-around fighter, I would say, Tim Elliott. But Matthias Nikolao definitely has the advantage jiu-jitsu. Is coming in with kind of a, Tim Elliott's been around a long time, so he's had his experience in the UFC. He's been around the block, so to speak. Matthias Nikolao has been around the block, went 3-1, and then was cut or his contract ended or whatever happened. He had to fight outside the UFC again. That's kind of like nobody expects to go 3-1 and then not get to fight again in the organization. But he did the good thing. He went out, he won 2 fights, and then he came back and beat a very, very, very tough guy, Manel Kopp. Matthias Nikolao, I think his submission skills, his grappling skills is what's going to get him the win here. Normally, I would say dominant wrestling, over dominant jiu-jitsu. Tim Elliott, the wrestler, Nicolao, the jiu-jitsu fighter. But I think Nicolao has improved his striking significantly in his past few fights. And I think if he wants to, he can get the fight to the ground and be able to be dominant in the top position. So Matthias Nicolao is going to be my pick there. Randy Brown, Jared Gooden. I'm very surprised. I guess this is very co-main event heavy card with Gooden being the co-main event. Gooden and Randy Brown being the co-main event. Randy Brown 13-4. He's been knocked out in 2 out of 4 of his losses. 50% of his losses are via knockout. Those 2 losses were Nico Price, Vicente Luque. Both guys very heavy-handed, unique striking. He's 7-4 in the UFC. He's got UFC wins over Alex Oliveira, Warley Alves, Brian Barberena, and Mickey Gall. 6 knockout wins, 5 by submissions, purple belt in jiu-jitsu. Gooden comes in, former NFC welterweight champion, 18-6, only been finished once, and that was a knockout loss to Bruno Oliveira. Sorry, not Bruno Silva. And that was at Titan FC 55, 2019. 1-2 in the UFCs, lost decisions to Alan Jouban and Abubakar Nurmagomedov in his first 2, and then most recently as a knockout win over Nicholas Stolze. 8 knockouts, 6 submissions. Both fighters very, very, very well-rounded. Randy Brown, we've seen, he's got a decent grappling game. He's got power in his hands. He's got a really stiff jab. Leg kicks are really well for him. Jared Gooden, on the other end, power. Everywhere he's going to go, punches, boxing, kickboxing, everything is power. He has knockout power from start to finish. I don't think that on the UFC level we've seen decisions, of course, 0-2 for decision. But we haven't seen decisions go really well for him. So I think the further the fight goes along, the more it favors Randy Brown. That's probably where the odds are coming from. Randy Brown coming in -200 favorite. But, and I always say this, I always say it's bias. I don't want to discredit Jared Gooden at all by saying that I'm biased picking him. I think that he has a very, very, very good shot of winning this fight. And if he does, it's power. He's got to land good standing up, and then if he gets him to the ground and he's able to out-muscle him and get him in a bad situation on the ground, I think that's possible too. But I think it starts with his power. It starts with his boxing and his kickboxing standing. So either way, I'm going to go Jared Gooden, probably by finish, first, second round. Mackenzie Dern, Marina Rodriguez is a very, very, very interesting fight. Mackenzie Dern, listen to this lineup. 4 gold medals in BJJ Worlds. 6 gold medals in the Asian Open, 2 gold medals in the Brazilian Nationals, 3 gold medals in the European Championships, 2 gold medals in the Pan Worlds, 2 in no gi, 2 in just regular Worlds gi, and then 1 ADCC North America gold medal, and 1 ADCC Worlds gold medal, which totals up to 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 11, 13, 19, 23 gold medals in jiu-jitsu. He's got a professional jiu-jitsu record of 75, 25, and 1. Black belt coming into this fight, 11-1, 7 submission wins. Only loss was a decision loss to Amanda Ribas. 6-1 in the UFC. She's going against Marina Rodriguez, who will come in with a 2-inch height and a 2-inch reach advantage. Purple belt in jiu-jitsu, so hopefully she can keep it standing. That should be her game plan, is to keep it standing. 14-1-2 on a 2-fight winning streak with a knockout over Amanda Ribas and a decision over Michelle Watterson. 4-1-2 in the UFC, and she has draws against Cynthia Calvillo and Randa Marcos. So I'd have to say, if we're going level of skill in opponents, I'm going to give it to Rodriguez. We're going jiu-jitsu skill. We got to go Dern. Stand-up skill, we're going Rodriguez again. Frame, body-wise, height, reach, going Rodriguez. This is a pretty even fight. And it's Mackenzie Dern -165 favorite. I could see it. She's very, very dominant on the ground. But Marina Rodriguez has got, heavy hands, man. She's really, really good with her jab. And, she's got a knockout. I know MMA math doesn't work. I get it. But you still, when you see it, when there's mutual opponents, you got to look at it. Knockout of Amanda Ribas versus decision loss to Amanda Ribas. that Mackenzie Dern has. And basically what that means to me when I see it is that Amanda Ribas is a pretty good striker. So Mackenzie Dern went the best striker she went up against. Amanda Ribas, she lost by decision. Rodriguez has fought plenty of grapplers. Cynthia Calvillo, Randa Marcos, both very dominant grapplers, and she didn't lose. They were draws. So, I mean, it was seen that maybe it was a 10-8 Rodriguez, and then the Calvillo and Marcos won 2 rounds or flip-flopped either way. But she didn't lose to the best wrestler she's won against, and she was able to knock out a striker in Amanda Ribas that outlasted Mackenzie Dern. So I really, really, really badly want to pick Mackenzie Dern, and I'm kind of convincing myself not to, but I'm just going to go ahead and jump out. My Contender Series picks I just picked, I got 1 right out of the 5 fights in the Contender Series. So my picks have been shot for the Contender Series. Might as well keep it up for the UFC. If Mackenzie Dern's going to lose, that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to go Mackenzie Dern in that one as well. Submission. She being that good at jiu-jitsu, it's just hard to see anybody being able to defeat her. Oh, my Lord. More news, man. I got Mackenzie Dern. I don't know where I left off, but there's 2 fights on the prelims that are not happening. Jamie Pickett versus Leonardo Staropoli. Staropoli has COVID, or somebody in his camp has COVID, so he will not be fighting. So that fight is completely scrapped. Sam Hughes also tested positive for COVID, so she is out of her fight with Lupa Godinez. Godinez will now be fighting Silviana Gomez Flores. So Silviana Gomez Flores against Lupa Godinez. So 2 fights, both coming off for COVID. We're taking us down to 10 fights total with the Pickett fight being scratched. Chris Gutierrez versus Felipe Corrales, Alexander Romanov, Jared Vanera, Charles Rosa versus Damon Jackson, Lupina Gomez versus, obviously, Silvina Gomez Juarez, and Stevie Garcia versus Charlie Ontiveros. Charlie Ontiveros taking his first fight back since injuring his neck against Kevin Holland. The fight I have to look for pretty much is 1 of 2 fights. I like Alexander Romanov versus Jared Vandeera. Undefeated Romanov going against knockout heavy. 7 out of 12 of his wins knockout Vandeera. Or I would even say Steve Garcia versus Charlie Ontiveros. Ontiveros looked pretty good in his fight with Holland. Of course, he was put in a bad situation and hurt his neck at the end of the fight, and that ultimately ended him up losing. But Steve Garcia, he's a crazy brawler. Everybody says that Mexican kind of fighting style, that just really tough fighting style, he's definitely got that. But kind of convinced myself that my under-the-radar fight should be Alexander Romanov, Jared Vandeera. Vandeera, crazy knockout pair. Romanov, extremely good. I don't know. I want to call it judo. He's got very good throws and grappling, 5 knockouts, 8 submissions. That is definitely a fight to look for. Big fan of Alexander Romanov. So make sure you check that out. What do we got next Saturday? Next Saturday after this, October 16th, Holly Holm versus Norma Dumont. Andrea Vlavsky versus Carlos Felipe. I doubt that's going to be the co-main event, but right now that is in the co-main event slot. Not really seeing any other fight that they would put, unless they're going to put Jordan Wright, Julian Marquez, or Nate Landwehr versus Ludwig Klein. But those are the only 2 other fights I could see. I wouldn't be mad at Andrei Arlovsky being a co-main event at this stage in his career. He's a veteran. He deserves to make pretty good money. And Carlos Felipe is a really good opponent for him. It's a really good clash of styles. So we'll see. We'll see you back next Tuesday to discuss previews for that card. Until that time, stay barbecued. You know what time it is.